Hello, and welcome to the channel. It's puzzle time again with Sudoku Sleuth, and I feel like we have quite a treat here for you today with today's puzzle. Now, we'll take a look at it in a moment, but it looks, as you can see, just phenomenal. And you can see with these letters, essentially, it's spelling out Jenga with J, E, N, G, and A, sort of fairly obvious there throughout the characters. But like I said, I'll get onto that in a moment. Just a little bit of personal news on my end. So this is my last recording for a while in this house because we are actually going away on vacation. Now, my immensely patient spouse has agreed to the fact that I will continue recording every day. So there will be no pause on my uploads. They will continue and keep coming. But just I will need to apologize upfront about potentially poor audio quality, or I have no idea what my setting will be at any given point. So let's see what excitement holds for us over the next handful of weeks. Well, with that said, let's take a look at the puzzle that we have for today. So we have Stack 'em Up, Knock 'em Down by rockratzero. I'm going to say rockratzero. And what looks to be another exceptionally pretty puzzle. And essentially, it's a Jenga style puzzle, or at least that's how the creator has labeled it, where you've got these essentially domino like sets that spell out the word Jenga, and it's actually part of the puzzle as well. And you can see some of them have actually toppled over and they are diagonal down here. So, really looking forward to playing it now. Now, let's take a look at the rules. We have normal Sudoku rules apply, so that means the digits 1 through to 9 in every row, every column, as well as every box. Kropki pairs, we've seen these before on this channel. We have featured it a few times. So digits connected by white dots are consecutive, such as these two. And there's actually quite a few Kropki dots, as you can see, all over the place, white Kropki dots. Not all dots are given, so helpful to know that there are no negative constraints. And then black dots are in a 1 to 2 ratio. So for example, this two cells means whatever they are, one that would have to be 2, or if this is 2, this would have to be 4. And it gives you an idea that it has to be in a multiple of 2 between them. Now, here is what the Jenga is all about. So we've got Jenga blocks are killer cages. The digits within a block must sum to the total if given in the top left corner of the block. And you can see throughout the puzzle, we have a lot of killer cages. So these two cells must sum up to 11. These two cells must sum up to 5. And, they're peppered throughout the entire puzzle. Now, some block totals are replaced with the letters Jenga and must be determined by the solver. So the value of the letters are increasing alphabetically. That's really the only clue that we're given, i.e. A is less than E. So whatever A is, and it's the sum of these two cells, we know that E will be higher. We don't know what E is, but we know it's higher than A. And, I actually turned on in advance. If you think about the Jenga blocks, how they are composed, and write these out alphabetically, I believe the running order will be, G before J, and then N. So we have 5 letters in increasing size, but we have to determine what they are. And I guess there is nothing in here that tells us that these couldn't be 2 digits or more. So there's nothing preventing N from actually being 10, for example. Otherwise, it probably would be relatively trivial that this would be something like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I don't think it's as simple as that. Now, the last thing that we have in the rules is we have 2 blocks that have fallen and are skewed. And the cage tools and the dots that apply within the box, imagine they only cover the 2 cells diagonally. So this A essentially means it is the sum of these 2 cells, and these 2 cells are essentially in the 1 to 2 ratio, as opposed to the entire square. That's all the rules we have for today. Well, it's plenty of rules, but as many of you know on this channel, we feature Sudoku variant puzzles. And thanks to all of these additional extra constraints, we will be able to solve, famous last words, we shall be able to solve this grid, which has 0 digits to start. So rockratzero thought there's so many clues, we require no digits whatsoever. I hope you enjoyed the puzzle. If you want to play along, as usual, there'll be a link down in the description down below. And with that said, I will restart the clock and we can see how we get on with today's puzzle. Now, as usual, as I was explaining the Kropki dots, there were so many things that just stood out. For example, this 5 killer cage can only be 2, 3. Because, we can't get to 5 without it being 1, 4 or 2, 3 in 2 cells. But they have to be consecutive, so it is 2, 3. And there was another one I saw down there. You can see this 5 now has to be 1, 4. Otherwise, you'd end up repeating 2, 3 in the same box. So this is 1, 4. And that's as far as we're going to get with this piece of logic. We probably can see any other... Yeah, so here's an example. This 9 cell, that can only be 3, 6. So if you remember, I was spitting out some numbers. So clearly it's not 1, 2 that only gets us to 3. It's not 2, 4 that only gets us to 6. And 4, 8 would be too many. It can only be 3, 6. And the 11 can only be 5, 6 to be consecutive as well. So we have the first digits in the grid. This digit could have only been 3 because 6 is already taken in the box. So now we have a digit at 1 minute 20. So, I said earlier that nothing prevents us from having 2 digits for these Jenga clues. I think the answer is it must do. You see, the minimum we can make this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm not even sure we can make it as small as that, meaning that A has to be 10 or higher. I say I'm not even sure we can make it as small as that because, even if this is, yeah, actually I can do. So these could be 1, 2, and 3, 4, and that would work. But that means A is a minimum of 10. And there was 5 letters. So is that 4 away then? E would be 11. G would be 12. J would be 13. N would be 14. So yeah, 4 away. So yeah, these boxes are quite large, and I guess that's not too surprising. Many of them are 4 digits long. I mean, you can clearly see we're not going to make much progress at this point unless we figure out what some of these letters stand for. So I want to take a moment to think through what A is. So we know it has to be, right, so G, E is, we only have one. I'm actually going to color this so they stand out a bit more on me. So we know the sums of all of these are the same. We know all of these. Before I'll explain why I went into this distraction in a moment, but it is for a very good reason, I assure you. It seems like we only have the 1J and the 1N. So where I was going with this is, because a lot of these cages are 2 cells long, we know that they can't be any higher than 17, because 8 and 9 add up to 17, and that's the absolute maximum any 2 cells could be that see each other, as is the case in in all of these dominoes that we have in today's puzzle. But what I was hoping for actually is that the N would be 2 cells long, but the fact that it's 4 cells long, gives you a very enormous range. Essentially, it's saying A can be as little as 10 and N can be as high as 30, which is just a huge range. Now, luckily, we have G. So we know if G is 17, as in the maximum we can put in 2 cells, and E is 16 because it is different and lower than G, then the maximum A can be is 15. And 15 is not possible for many reasons, but chief amongst them is... No, where was I going to go with that logic? Yeah. So we actually have 5 different cells in box 4 that are part of whatever A is. So if you think about 15, it's a 6, 9 pair, 7, 8 pair. Well, what digit would this be? And in fact, the same rule applies for 14. You can only use 5, 9, and 6, 8. And then we've run out of digits that can get us to 14 to place in this cell. So A is between 10 and 13. And I'm thinking at this point, we probably have enough constraints to actually figure out which one it is, I suspect. So 13, we've got 6, 7, 5, 8, 4, 9. So we have 3 different ways of doing it. If that is the case, 6, 7 would be in here, which is fine. We need something that is a multiple of 2 apart, which 4, 9, and 5, 8 do not qualify. So 13 is out. 12 would be next on the cards. I'm actually thinking, can we even get 10 in here? Because when I was going through the 9s, we said 4, 8 gets us to 12, 3, 6 gets us to 9, which is too small. So I'm actually thinking that A has to be 12. There is no other way I can get something that's higher than 10 and lower than 13 with 2 cells that are a multiple of 2 to get to it. Feeling pretty confident about that now. That's 4, 8. And to get to 12 is either 3, 9, 4, 8, 5, 7. Therefore, this has to be 3, 9. There's only 3 ways of doing it in 2 cells. Yeah, 5, 7. And we've used the 5, the 4, and therefore that's the only way we can get to it with 3, 9. Do we know now enough about this? So let's think about what... I mean, these two almost look like they're going to have to be identical, but let's think about the 12 for a second. And there's a lot of ways to get to 12, I suspect, with 4 cells. You see, I'm going to start writing down some combos. Don't assume that this is necessarily the answer. I'm just thinking it through. So that's a perfectly good way of getting to 12. I guess the next possibility would be 2, 4, which gets us to 6. And then we need another 6 that wouldn't work. So this cell, these two have to be odd because that's made up of an even and an odd given they are consecutive, meaning that the sum of them is odd. Therefore, the sum of this has to be odd to get to 12. So 2, 4 doesn't work. 3, 6 does. So this could be 3, 6 and then 1, 2. That absolutely would work. So I'm just going to add them as options. And I think that's it. 1, 2, 2, 4, and 4, 8 is too much. Yeah, I'm happy that's reasonably exhaustive. So 3, 6, you can see, doesn't work in here. This has to be from 1, 2, because we've already got 3 placed in box 5. And the 1, 2 has to be joined with 4, 5. Therefore, this is an 8. This is a 4. Sadly, it really doesn't tell us a lot about the remaining options down here. Yeah, there's just... I am going to remove these pencil marks. I mean, I could see that, you know, it's not a 4 here and it's not a 3 there, and therefore you can sort of eliminate some options on these cells. But it just feels, yeah, like overwhelming amount of information just yet. So we have for sure an 8 in here, and it's from 7, 8, or 9. And we have 7 or 9 down here, essentially because this is consecutive. The 8 has to be here. So G is either 15 or 17. And remember, G was a maximum of 17. Yeah. Right. Let's start being systematic about this. So we know E is between 12 and either 15 or 17. Now I'm looking at this again, and we just said that because there's a white Kropki dot between them, this has to be odd. And in fact, so does the G, and so does it has to be in here. So we've got the following remaining options, 13, 15, and 17. And 2 of these digits are taken up by G and E. And the question is, which is which? So if E is 13, this would be 6, 7. If it's 15, this would be 7, 8. In any scenario, there is a 7 in here. And then G is either 15 or 17. And again, in any scenario, there will be an 8, which we know is now here. And therefore, this is the 8 that's up there. And that's not 8. And now we have another 7, 9 pair. But because we have to use the 7 in here, that's the 7. Apologies, I'm going to pause for a second. Sorry about that. Where were we? So yeah, we found out what these are. So this is 17. This is because they can't share a digit between them since they're on the same row. So this had to be 6, 7. This had to be 8, 9. And we actually know what they all are now. Sorry, we know what E's are. And we know what G is. And we know what A is. Now I wonder, I think that actually tells us what this is. So if you remember, for these styles of A's, where you've got a white Kropki dot followed by a black Kropki dot domino, the options were 1, 2 and the black dots, or 3, 6. Well, 6 is clearly not available anymore, so that's 1, 2, and therefore this is 4, 5, and we actually know the order of this thanks to this 4. So that's the 4, that's the 5, that's the 5, that's the 4, and we continue to make slow but surely very steady progress. Now we're left with, I'm going to say 4 and 9. Yeah, that has to be the 3, that's the 2. And that does indeed add up to 13, confirming that E is 13. I admit I jumped ahead. Pardon me, I should really just voice some of these things. To look at this one here, knowing that this is 13, and that this adds up to an odd digit. So 1, 2 would only get us to 3. And therefore, this would require a 10 in here. So that's clearly not 1 and 2 as a combo. What we therefore can think about is 2, 3 gets us to 5, which would require an 8 in here. that's an option. And if it is that option, it will be 2 and 3. 3, 4 is not an option because we have a double 4 in here and a double 5. So the next one up from this combination is actually a 6, 7, which is too much. 6, 7 alone would get us to 13 and would require a 0 in here. So this is actually forced, despite however many options we could have. In a 3-cell 13 cage, this is fixed. We now know that G is... For a second there, I thought I made a mistake. Because I looked at this and I thought, oh wow, that's another G. Can't get 17 twice in the same box in 2 cells. But that's not correct at all. That's a 4-cell cage that gets us to 17. And again, one of those lovely combos of a white domino, white Kropki joint domino, black Kropki joint domino. So I imagine we can probably crack this one. Let's see what these digits could be. It is from 3 and 6. We actually even know that the 3 has to be there. And therefore this is a 6. Now, this can only be 2 or 4. 2 or 4 to be adjacent to the 3. It's not 4, so that's a 2. Let's just pencil mark what we have left in this box. I think it's a 1, 7. Sorry, in the row. And in the box we have, I'm going to say a 4, 5. Now 2, 3 gets us to 5. We need to get 17. So these have to be 12. That's 4 and 8. Got anything in here to disambiguate any of these at this point? Not really. Yes, we do. 6 and 7. 5 and 6. And that's it for now. Yeah. See, I've been consistently putting off having to think about what J's and N's sum to, because you know, we're going beyond 17 now. We're approaching potentially 20s. And it feels like a very tough question to try and answer just yet. So I think we need to continue to complete as many of these boxes and rows and do just a little bit of Sudoku to try and reduce the number of options that we have on the table. So you can see 2 has to be in here because of this 2. But otherwise, these cells are made up of 1, 2, and 3, but no 2, and by the looks of things, 5. Yeah, I think, you know, clearly completing a lot of pencil marking down here is not really going to help us. This 2 is helpful. That's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 2. Unfortunately, that's not the 1 to help us disambiguate the 4 and 1. So we don't actually know what this is at this point. What do we need to complete the column? Actually, let's do this column first. That's going to be more helpful. So we still need by the looks of things, a 6 and 7. Oddly enough, this can only be a 6. This can only be a 3. This can only be a 7. To be adjacent to a 7, it's not 8. It's 6 in here. Interesting. So we actually have 13 plus some number, and here we actually have 9 plus some number. But remember, n has to be greater than j. At this point, I feel like we have enough information to actually figure out what they add up to. So you can see that I'm just going to actually add in all the possible options. So 6 and 3 are gone, and so is 2. So that means we can't have 1 and 2 in there. Can't have 2 and 4. It can only be 4 and 8. And because of this 8, we actually know the running order of it. So that's the 8, that's the 4, and we know that this is the 1, that's the 4. Now we only have 2 remaining digits to place, which is 5 and 9. And we actually know the order of these again, thanks to this 5 and here is a 9, and this is an 8. And to confirm, that is 17 plus 9 to get us to 26. That is 12 plus 13 to get us to 25. So just under the n. Superb. I'm really enjoying this puzzle. You know, the construction to be able to add, you know, this entire story into it, but somehow it's all still able to be resolved in an empty grid is just phenomenal. So we need a 1, 5, and 9 to complete the box. All options seem viable at the moment. Sorry, the row. And we need in here, by the looks of things, 6, 7, and 9. I'm going to say it seems like almost all the options are viable again. Disappointingly so. Right, so we know this needs to be 1, 7 to complete the column. We need a 4 still in this box. This 4 tells us where it is. So that's 1, 5, 7, 9. This is a naked single. It is a 2. Which means there's no 2 in here. That's a 1, 7 pair. That's the 2. What do we have on this side to complete it? We need a 5 with a 1 or 7. And it seems like all of these are viable options still. Unbelievably, this late into the puzzle. Yeah, of course, this is an 8, which is a, sorry, this is a, so that's, we know that adds up to 12. We don't know what that would be. We do, of course, because it can be, oh, it's not a black Kropki dot. So it's not 4, 8 because that's gone. It could be, therefore, 5 and 7. Or is 3, 9 possible? No, because the 3 and the 9 both see this cell. So that's 5, that's 7. That's actually fixed. These are not 5. These are not 1, 3. This is a 2, 5 pair. This 5 looks up here and removes 5 from, really leaves it down to just the one cell in box 1. That's not a 5. Where does 5 go? It's, well, we knew it was already down here. So that's not a big revelation necessarily. We are down to just 2 cells in this box, which can only be 8. We actually know where that goes because of this 8 over here. And we need a 6 to complete the box. The 8 and the 6, when they look up, are not helping at all. Surely I should be able to resolve these by now. Yeah, 7, 9, 3, 9, 1, 7, 3, 1, 1, 7. And that's the left-hand side of the grid done. And therefore that's the 9. These are not 9. Pardon. That's a 6, 7 pair. That's not 7. That's a 1, 5 pair. And do we know any of them? We do know this 4 tells us that's a 5, that's a 4, that's a 1, that's a 5. We know that this is the 9, the 8, the 2, and the 5, the 3 and the 2. Doesn't look like we know what these are just yet. We know that's a 6, 7 pair, not enough. See, we have 3 and 9. Given it's a ratio of 2, this 9 is not joining us here, so that's the 9. That's got to be a 6. That's 7, that's 6. That's 1, that's 7. We need to place a 1, and if we've not made any mistakes, that's the 7 to complete the puzzle. Oh, sorry. I was expecting to pop up there for a second, but I haven't actually completed these. There we go. Completed in 24 and a bit minutes. And rockratzero, that's a fantastic puzzle. I absolutely loved it. You know, we've got just the whole Jenga concept, having to figure out what all of the letters stand for, but the very logical way to be able to sort of progress through it and essentially figure out what are all the possible options and systematically eliminate it is just fantastic. You know, thank you so much for creating it and sharing it with us. I hope you've enjoyed today's puzzle and see you back for the next video. Bye for now.